This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi, I'm your host Cambo. Grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast. So Islanders, well, I didn't have time to finish researching this week. And funny, I've worked afternoon shift for over a decade, so my body clock has shifted across about 4 hours permanently, which means when I'm going to Thailand and back, I don't have any jet lag at all, as they're 3 or 4 hours behind, depending on summertime. But this week I've had to fill in on another contract, and it's meant getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning. So I've suffered virtual jet lag like you wouldn't believe. So there was no audio podcast this week, but I thought I would bring you one of my early episodes as a reboot for YouTube. And this is episode 37. This was originally a request from one of the Islanders, Amber, and I should give a warning to any vegetarians or vegans out there tonight. I'm going to talk about meat. Now, it's human meat. Well, nowadays we have plenty of apps and internet sites to help people match up with others looking for love or companionship, like Tinder, Grindr, and according to Ari, my podcast mate, Words with Friends. It wasn't always swipe left or right and hook up, especially if you were looking for a specific niche or fetish. You may have to look a little deeper, maybe even go looking into the deep, dark corners of that World Wide Web. Look, research for this has led me down some very, very dark paths, I can tell you. I will warn you when the gruesome bits are approaching, if I remember. But hey, part of true crime is finding out what people are capable of. So just don't be eating dinner while you're listening. Now, there's a rule on the internet. It's called Rule 34. That states if it exists, there's porn of it. So basically saying anything you can think of, you will be able to find porn of that subject on the internet and people getting off on it. So when you think of cannibalism, according to Rule 34, there will be people out there that get off on it, and not only getting horny being the cannibal, but there are those out there that have the sexual fantasy of being eaten, and not in the way you probably think I'm thinking about. Really eaten. So let me tell you the story of Armin Meiwes, also known as the Rotenburg Cannibal or Der Metzgermeister, the Butcher Master. Now, for your information, his name is spelled, his last name, M-E-I-W-E-S, just in case you want to hook up, I don't know, but you want to search for him on Google. So let's go into a bit of Armin's past. Now, Armin Meiwes, born on the 1st of December 1961 in Essen, West Germany. Now remember when Germany was split into East and West? Well, Armin was born in West Germany. He was the third son of Waltraud Meiwes, and according to court records, he was the first child of her third husband. Now, Waltraud had previously had one son with each of her other husbands. His oldest brother was 15 years older than him, and his other brother was 6 years older. Eventually, his older brother moved to Berlin, and his second brother moved in with older bro as well. September 29, 1970, Armin was just 8 years old when his father left the family. Armin had been playing hide and seek when he heard his parents arguing. Then he saw his father put the pedal to the metal and take off in the car, never to return. Now this left Armin with this bitter, twisted, dominant and Avon lady mother. Without brothers for company, Armin developed an imaginary friend he called Frankie and had an obsession with the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel. At this early stage of life, Armin starts to fantasize about eating his friends so they would become part of him and never leave him, unlike his father and brothers. Now, at this stage, Armin and his mother were living in a rundown mansion in Rotenburg and De Fulda. Now, Armin's mum, Waltrode, was overly critical of him and would accompany him everywhere he went. She wasn't shy in telling him off in public as well. Now, Armin attended high school until his 9th school year, when he had to repeat a year because he was missing 6 months due to an ear infection. Now, at 18 years of age, Armin joined the 52nd Armoured Infantry Battalion stationed at Rotenburg. Although he received several promotions during his army life, other soldiers had no respect for him and they could dominate him without fear of retribution. He at least had a date for one of the Christmas parties while in the army, and that was his mum. That was his mum, it was. He ended up getting drunk and crashing his car, and he lost his licence. As soon as he got his licence back, he got drunk and crashed it again. In fact, on the few occasions Armin did get a date, his mum would chaperone them, and as you can imagine, drove all his potential girlfriends away. Now, I don't think she drove them away to keep Armin for herself. Rather, she didn't think any of them were good enough for him. So the army didn't really suit him, and in 1991 he left and decided to become a computer technician and take care of his mum, as she was becoming sickly. Now, this was early 90s, and not a bad time actually to get into computers. I mean, who had a 486? Fun fact, I did work for Atari Computers in 1990. Well, there you go. Armin would manipulate photos of people that he had downloaded from the net and change them to make it look like they were dismembered. Now, apparently he was pretty good at it, and in 1999 his mother died of cancer. This left him totally alone in the dilapidated mansion. He constructed a shrine to his mother in the house and had a plastic mannequin he would turn down the blankets for each night. So, with Mum not watching, Armin started to look at dirty pictures on the internet. Now, this was better than going down the shop to buy a stick book. You could just keep click, and never-ending supply of sexy photos. I don't know, apparently so. Eventually, he gravitated towards porn that featured torture and pain. And this led him to chat rooms and forums, and to his surprise, he found others that had the same cannibalistic fetish that he had. So you can imagine the smile come on his face when he found that first cannibal chat room. Anyway, Armin would soon come across the Cannibal Cafe forum. It's the introductory post. It says, "Welcome to the Cannibal Cafe message board. This board is, like the rest of this website, it's been provided by necrobabes.com via their necrobabes.org. Meanwhile, we here at the Cannibal Cafe, in association with the California and Midwest Human Female Stockmen's Association, hope that you use and enjoy this forum for the exchange of messages and notices." You heard that right. No, don't worry about rewinding. I'll say it again. The California and Midwest Human Female Stockmen's Association. Now, this site was hosted by a guy called Pero Loco, a self-styled prophet and religious leader of the Holy Church of Dulcet, California. And he ran this organisation called California and Midwest Human Female Stockmen's Association, of whom he says he's chairman. Now he claims, get this, he claims to be a supplier of high quality human female meat to various clients in Britain and other European countries. As per his website details, he claims that girls volunteer themselves for the snuff video training, and they have the option of either to volunteer for butchering or being a breeding sex slave to their owners. I mean, you can't make this shit up. This is on the internet. So, Armin creates an online identity called Frankie. Yes, the same name as his imaginary friend when he was younger. So Frankie posts to this message board. boy. Message board. I search for a young boy between 18 and 25 years old. Have you a normal and healthy body? I will butcher you and eat your horny flesh, Frankie. Now, he gets plenty of responses. Now, honestly, this website is... Most people are doing the fantasy thing, right? They're not selling human meat, buying all this. But he gets a lot of responses. As I said, most are just doing this fantasy thing. And they don't really want Frankie to eat them. But one guy, Borg Jose, he actually met up with Armin in real life. He got to the stage of being laid out on Armin's table, ready to be butchered. He then complained of feeling sick, and so Armin let him go. Now, Armin let him go because part of the fantasy was that the victim had to be consensual. So, thinking about this, it's early on in the dawn of the internet, so not everyone has the internet. There is a site that is mainly connected with cannibalism, so not everyone on the internet's into cannibalism, and out of that small amount of people, Armin, posing as Frankie, is able to get one person who is willing to be eaten. I mean, what the fuckity fuck? What is wrong with some people? And honestly, I don't want to fetish shame. I don't want to fetish shame anyone. But I don't know. Anyway. So the chances of getting a second volunteer to be eaten, what do you reckon that is? Must be almost impossible. No, not the fuck. Frankie hooks another one. This time, it's 43-year-old Bernd Brandes, a corporate middle manager drone who on Valentine's Day 2001 replies to Frankie and writes, I am 36 years old, 175 centimetres and weigh 72 kilos. I hope you're really serious about it because I really want it. That sounds so fucking romantic. So they exchange various lurid emails discussing on the best way to be eaten and decide to meet up on the 9th of March 2001. Now, Brandt suggests that his skull be used as an ashtray. I mean, that's ridiculous. As everyone knows, you don't have to suggest to a smoker what to use as an ashtray. The world's an ashtray to smokers. So, on the 9th of March 2001, Brandt goes to Armin, or as he knows him, Frankie's house. Now, before Brandt leaves, he deletes his browser history. He must have been listening to me, and his emails. He tells his partner he's going on a work trip. He then buys a one-way ticket from Berlin to Kassel, where Frankie picks him up. On their arrival at Frankie's house, Frankie goes to the kitchen to make coffee, leaving Brandt in the sitting room. Brandt then strips naked and says to Frankie as he brings the coffee, I want you to admire your dinner. What do you got? Sausage and 2 veg. Then Brandt gets cold feet and he wants to go home. So Frankie, he drives him back towards Castle Station because he said this has got to be consensual. But then Brandt freaks out about the drama he's going to have with his partner when he gets home. So they turn around and go back to Frankie's. On return, they start up again. Now, Armin sets up a video camera to record the whole thing. And he does this, it's in his special purpose-built soundproof slaughter room, which we all have, don't we? I don't know, DIY shows. They have a root, and then Brandt consumes sleeping pills, a bottle of cough medicine, and he washes it all down with a schnapps chaser. Don't know which one, apricot schnapps maybe. Now Brandt decides that Frankie, and I'll call Armin Frankie, as I believe he was acting out this role play as Frankie is at the time, Brandt demands Frankie bite off his cock and eat it. At first, Frankie couldn't bite it off, so he grabbed a knife. Now, the knife wasn't sharp enough. Another attempt with a Schaafsmesser, or sharp knife, did the trick. Now, Brandt starts screaming from what maybe, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but maybe 2 or 3 minutes with blood spurting out like a fountain everywhere. And I don't know about you, but I would be screaming for a bit longer than a couple of minutes. So let's fucking go on. Frankie then blanched Brandt's dick, seasoned it with salt, pepper and garlic, then fried it. It shriveled to almost nothing and was too chewy to eat. So he gave it to the dog. Now, Frankie, don't forget this is all consensual. I am laughing, but, you know, maybe I've had too many beers. I'll have a sip. I need one. Anyway, Frankie, he then ran a bath for Brandt, went to another room, and he read a Star Trek book. Hide all the Trekkies out there. But he did check on him every 15 minutes. So after a couple of hours, Frankie notices Brandt's collapsed on the bathroom floor. Now, Frankie takes him to the bedroom and they agree to not call an ambulance. It's all consensual. Eventually, in the early hours of the morning, Frankie slits Brandt's throat to finish him off. Armin, or Frankie, then proceeded to cut up Brandt in a manner that he learnt from the internet. You get so many good things off that internet. Now remember, all this has been videotaped. And now I have seen what may or may not be stills from the video. I won't stick them up here or I'll be banned. So Google is your friend if you want to see them. If they are real, Armin cut off Brandt's head, then hangs him from the ceiling. He then proceeds to drain the rest of the blood out of him. Armin then cuts Brandt in half between the legs all the way down, like meh, through to his belly, chest, and then to where his neck would have been. He then processed the meat, pulverised the bones, and buried the head, hands, and feet in the garden. He then went about cooking and eating Brandt, with one of his favourite recipes being rump steak with pepper or wine sauce, potatoes, and served on good crockery. He also minced up the chewier cuts and made meatballs. He would later tell reporters that his first meal was a piece of rump steak, a piece from his back, and that it was a special occasion. Armin laid out candles, his good dinnerware and wine. He ate it with potatoes and sprouts. He said, the first bite was, of course, very strange. It was a feeling I can't really describe. I'd spent over 40 years longing for it, dreaming about it. And now I was getting the feeling that I was actually achieving this perfect inner connection through his flesh. And by the way, he said, the flesh tastes like pork, but stronger. So Brandt's partner, he's already at the police and reports him missing. Brandt has pretty much deleted all trace of his dealings with Frankie, and so they don't really have any leads. At this time, Armin would post photos of his cannibalism on the internet, and he was the hero of cannibals worldwide. Now, Armin would often watch the video and he'd spank the monkey, so this showed that there was some sexual motive to what he'd done. So by the time Armin had consumed about 30 kilo or 60 odd pounds of Brandt's flesh, which took him about 10 months, he goes back online to the Cannibal Cafe and posts that he's looking for his next victim. And one of the posts reads, "Are you between 18 and 25 years old, normal and healthy? Is it your desire to put an end to your life? But if you want something that makes sense, then come to me. I'll slaughter you and use your body in delicious schnitzel and steaks. Interested? Then please apply with an indication of age, height and weight, preferably with a photo. Frankie." So at this stage, police have absolutely no idea that Armin, posing as Frankie, was involved with the missing Brandts. But one of the members of the Cannibal Cafe forum contacts police and lets them know about this Frankie guy that seems to be playing out more than a fantasy about eating people. On the 28th of November 2002, police get a warrant to search Armin's house. They searched and took evidence such as meat from the freezer and videos. They didn't notice a hidden compartment in the bottom of the freezer at this stage. Now, Armin is arrested and he's questioned. The videos that the police found at first, well, they weren't the video of the slaughter on Brandes. And as you can imagine, the meat that they found, they'd have to send that off to be tested. Now, police had no choice but to release him. He then met a woman and had some feeling that he needed to confess what he'd done in order to further the relationship. Now, he wasn't going to confess to her, he had to confess to someone. So he ended up going to police and he confessed to absolutely everything. On the 10th of December 2002, he was arrested and further searches on his house began. Now, police dug up a skull and the remains of disembodied hands and feet. They took away more meat samples, they found the hidden compartment of the freezer, and now they found his slaughter video. They ended up with 35 bags of meat. Now, the missing person file on Brandes could be closed and his family and relatives informed. So police go through Armin's computer and they're able to track back a couple of years of browser history. They found all his correspondence on the Cannibal Cafe and other forums. They also found thousands of images depicting torture and porn. The results of the analysis on the meat taken from his house also came back as positive as human meat. Along with the video as evidence, on the 17th of July 2003, Armin was charged with murder for the purposes of sexual pleasure and with disturbing the peace of the dead. Open and shut case, you would think. But it was almost as if Armin was shouting boom whakalunga at the authorities, as there was a lot of debate on whether he should be charged or convicted at all. You see, it was clearly evident in the correspondence between Armin and Brandes that it was a mutual decision, with Brandes offering his body to be eaten by Armin. Now, at the time, there was no law against cannibalism in West Germany. But as I think we are aware more now than years ago, there are mental health issues that should be taken into consideration as well. Look, Brandes did have a good job. He seemed to be reasonably well adjusted and he had a partner. It looked like he may have been suffering maybe from depression, and this, coupled with getting on the net looking for someone to eat him, well, let's just say he was suffering from maybe some sort of mental condition. Also, at the time of the act of getting his dick cut off and ultimate killing, Brandes had consumed a lot of drugs. So now we've got to look at the time, at that moment. That consent may have been a bit of an issue as well. Now, Armin didn't force him into his house. In fact, he was happy not to go through with the killing and drive Brandes back to the station to go home as he did the other guy. Armin's state of mental health also had to be looked at as well. Now, other than abandonment issues and mother issues, he really couldn't be seen as crazy at all, especially at the moment that this all went down. So it's not an open and shut case. Now, during the trial, 19 key minutes of the video Armin took that day was shown to the court after journalists and the public were removed. Well, on the 30th of January in 2004, Armin would be found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. Now, this didn't sit well with the prosecution and indeed with all the people, with the populace. It did open up debate, though, on whether or not he should be tried and convicted at all, seeing as though Brandes willingly gave up his body to be eaten by Armin. In April 2005, the prosecutors appealed his sentence and a retrial was ordered. A retrial commenced on the 12th of January 2006. The prosecutors argued that Armin should have been convicted of murder, not manslaughter, and given a life sentence. Now, one of the main issues was whether or not Brandes agreed to his killing, given his mental state at the time, and also whether he was able to give consent after the drugs and alcohol had kicked in. Another aspect of the retrial was whether Armin killed Brandes to satisfy his sexual desires, and not because he'd been asked to kill Brandes. Now, even though Armin stated that he would not kill again, as he's now satisfied by doing it once, the fact that he was looking for his next victim online showed this wasn't true. A psychologist told court that Armin was likely to reoffend and still had fantasies about devouring the flesh of young people. On May the 9th, 2006, Armin Meiwes was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. So I find it hard to get the rage in this case. Clearly it is a sad case, not for only Armin but also for Brandes. But by all accounts, it was an act planned out by both of them over a period of time. Now, Armin obviously had mother and abandonment issues, but other than that, he seemed to be a normal, functioning person in society. And that was the same with Brandes. He had a job and a relationship. Still, their respective mental states deviated from what we would call normal. Well, I don't know what I think's normal anyway. Also, in Life Imitating Art in 2007, Armin apparently helped investigators in the analysis of two suspected cannibal murders from 1998 and 2000, in which two young boys were found horribly mutilated, possibly by the same murderer. Clarice? Armin now works in the prison library and he's a vegetarian. Who'd have thought? So, Islanders, what do you think? Not exactly a cold-blooded murderer. Still, he did take advantage of someone who may have been going through some issues in his life, and his conviction and sentence for murder, is it justifiable? Now, I did find some info that after Armin killed Brandes, 5 other people met him, although he didn't eat any of those. So that's about all for tonight. And thanks to Amber for suggesting this case. If you want to support the island, there's links in the description for Patreon, PayPal, and merch. Please feel free to comment. I'm just going to go. We sold two beach towels last week, so that was all right, putting that on display. Anyway, if you please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and I would truly appreciate if you share the channel. Hit the bell to be notified because I don't bleep out swearing and I use words like murder and fuck. The YouTube gods won't promote the channel at all. So your subscription and sharing is really appreciated in getting more people on the Islander. Soon we're going to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We're going to give away a t-shirt or something. So please stay in tune for that. I might have to put a keyword somewhere. So that's about it anyway. That's 29 minutes. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been watching True Crime Island. And as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night and boom, bunga. Shut up, chook.